Hello, Brighton. My name is Oliver Brett. I am a senior SEO consultant at Screaming Frog. And you're wondering where we got the name from. It has something to do with a cat in one of our director's gardens trying to fight a frog. And when he came up to the frog just screamed so loudly that the cat ran away. I'm not sure what that says about our company values, but at least it's memorable. You may wish to follow me on Twitter. My name is @OliverBrett, though I'm mostly famous on Twitter for @Lord of the Serps, which is a little account I made where I make stupid jokes about Lord of the Rings and combine them with SEO issues that people might have. In fact, it's got so popular, this silly account that I have with the SEO community, that John Mueller actually replies sometimes. He hasn't quite figured out that it's supposed to be Lord of the Rings GIFs only, but we're making progress there. So if you're into that kind of thing, do give me a follow there. So hypothetically, just imagine that your digital PR, thought leadership, most Instagrammed, Disney princess themed, interactive content marketing that was ideated featuring cute puppies and Elon Musk, reimagined with Friends theme, gone sexual influencer clickbait, around the world, in maps of the world, this one trick, fake news, data index driven link building activity. Whatever that was, just imagine that hypothetically that's gone very, very well. And Coverage Book is now reporting that you've actually had 2.1 billion online people read that, which is smashing. That's actually nearly the population of China and India combined. So that's not bad going, PR team, smashing it. Now, hypothetically, imagine you've achieved that with link building, and then at the same time, the technical team, this is the Screaming Frog technical team, they're actually quite happy with the technical side of the website, and they're not grumbling and they're not kind of like a bit sad like most technical SEOs are. In this imaginary world, hreflang has gone perfectly. There's not a stray canonical, there's not a single 404. Everything's gone great. Now, in this hypothetical universe that doesn't actually exist, clients are consistent. And as we all know, clients live in the fancy business world where they've got ties and suits and fast cars and skyscrapers. And the clients will be asking you questions like this. They'll be saying, why aren't we making more money? They'll be saying, why has organic leveled off? They might be asking, what about lead generation? Which sounds like a question you'd ask a PPC, but that is sometimes a question that an SEO gets asked, unfortunately. Why am I even paying you? Or maybe my favorite question that sometimes gets thrown around these days is, what's our holistic SEO strategy? Whatever that means. What your client is essentially asking is, what about second breakfast? And if we want to achieve that and keep them happy and keep their tummies full, there's a lot of ways we can approach that. Now, initial keyword research into a lot of our campaigns often focuses on both informational and commercial content. So, for example, a typical keyword we might target is cheapest SEO, or maybe if you're more information, you might think around like what is a featured snippet, for example. These kind of keywords are the sort of bread and butter of most campaigns. But what users also want to know when they're both researching information and things that they want to buy is they're also asking, why should I pick you for whatever it is that you're selling or trying to tell me about? More broadly, the big question of today is why you? What makes you stand out? Now, Google have their own system for dealing with this, which is called EAT. I'm pretty sure if Google was a British company, they'd have called it TEA. However, they're American, so they decided to call it EAT. Now, as we all know, EAT stands for expertise. Do you know what you're talking about? Authority. Does anyone else like you? And trust. Are you or are you not secretly evil? And these all kind of relate back to how users interact with the site as well as how Google interacts with the site. So why you again? It all relates back to these sort of key questions around trust and authority and respect and whether or not you can be relied on as somebody that you might want to do business with. And therefore from this we can kind of deduce that obviously if you don't trust a website, you're not going to put your credit card details into it. So therefore user trust is one of the key things that people look for before deciding whether or not to convert. With all that in mind then, we're now going to run through the CRO audit process that we do at Screaming Frog on some of our accounts, with a bit of SEO EAT thrown in there for just added spice. There's a 6-step process involved in this. First is a sanity check, just to make sure everything makes sense on the website. Next, we're going to go through how you get some data to do some further analysis. I'll then talk about how you might want to examine some of the outliers from that data process. And then we'll do a bit of competitor analysis to find out what we can steal from other people who are doing our jobs better than us. UX is another important factor that we'll consider. And finally, signposting trust is where you'll get some quick wins, and we'll run through that as well. So step number one is to go through a sanity check, and this unfortunately does involve a bit of common sense. What you want to do is just get a pen and paper, go through the website and just make a note of everything that just really upsets you. For me, this is quite niche stuff. For example, out-of-date social media icons, aggressive SSL icons, aggressive calls to action, crap stock photography. There is actually loads of great stock photography out there, but generally, if it's possible, it's always best just to have pictures of your own actual staff and your own actual business where possible. Color consistency is another one that you might want to think about, trying to ensure that everything's as clear as possible and as simple as possible is always good. Font consistency is another one that can bug people. We had this client launch a website and they had like 7 different fonts on one page, and it was just all a bit higgledy-piggledy and overwhelming. Annoying animations is another one. Animations make sites slower and they're just really annoying for users, but for some reason people at the top end of businesses seem to love them, so there's another battle you can enjoy. Keyword stuffing is something that we don't see too much of these days, but it is occasionally still found out in the wild. My colleague Matt found this a few years back, where basically this company had just put together every single combination of keywords they come up with around kitchen cabinets and made sure that they included every last one at the very bottom of their page. Again, that's something that Google would pick up on these days and then they would ignore. Consistent tone of voice is another one. This is something that tools in our industry can't really target at the moment, but it's probably something that somebody clever is working on an AI to target. Reading through the site, just make sure that all the copy is sort of consistent and sort of follows from one page to the other, and there's no sort of abrupt changes in the sort of style of how things are written. Now, I'm not a freelancer, but I've been told that tax returns are a pain in the arse. So obviously, to minimize any stress on users, you want to make sure that forms are as simple as possible, because that can be a bit of a pet peeve for a lot of people. Autoplay ads are especially annoying, especially for sort of like newspaper websites where they just pop up ads everywhere and videos playing, and it's really hard just to whack-a-mole and get rid of them so you can actually see what you're trying to read. And broken checkouts, surprisingly, this happens quite a lot. We go through a website, we're trying to work out why it's not ranking for X, Y, and Z, and then we find that actually, even if people wanted to buy something, they couldn't because the checkout doesn't work. So kind of an obvious one, but one definitely worth checking. Step 2 then is to get data. Now, Screaming Frog have actually recently hired a head of marketing who's called Mark. His entire job is to promote Screaming Frog software, and I thought, as my annual review is coming up, I thought I'd do a bit of his job for him, and then he can help me out, and we can support each other. So this is Mark, our head of marketing, and he'll be very pleased with the next few slides, because a great way to collect data is actually to use Screaming Frog's SEO Spider tool. Other crawlers are available, but ours is the one that looks the most like Excel, so you'll be very familiar with it. One of the things we've added with Screaming Frog is actually API access for Google Search Console and Google Analytics, amongst others. So what you can do when you're crawling a website is you can also crawl through and get all the data from Google Analytics on all the pages that you're crawling, and Google Search Console data as well. From that, what we then do in the agency at Screaming Frog is we will then whack that into Excel, put it together in a big spreadsheet, and then we'll conditional format it so these red things show up when certain metrics are hit, like the bounce rate is over 80% or click-through rate is under 20% or whatever it is. From that, you can then very quickly sort of locate which URLs are causing certain problems for users, and you can work from that. Site search is another quick one to get some data from. If you go onto Google Analytics and you've got this set up, you can see what people are searching for with your internal site search, and that can be quite eye-opening as well. Step 3 then is to examine the outliers of this data. There's a number of themes that might come up when you're sort of looking through these different metrics. So high bounce rate, that might indicate a bad first impression of the website. I quite recently went on the Express, and for some reason the main headline they had front and center as soon as you load on was "Homeowner stunned as couple sit down and eat their dinner in her garden." And that was the most exciting news they could come up with that day. That's probably not going to encourage me to stick around the news website for too long. Same thing with site speed, another consideration that I'm sure everybody is aware of. Load time on page, that could indicate that your content doesn't quite flow, or it could just indicate that you've got quite a basic website and it doesn't really excite people enough or surprise them, or they don't feel any need to keep scrolling through the page if there's nothing that sort of stands out and makes them go, I'm interested in that. And obviously images are an easy way to achieve that, but there's lots of other tactics you can use. High exit rate, a lot of this is around poor internal linking. So you want to think about when someone's on a page and they get to the bottom of it, what's that encouraging them to click onto another page? This is something that we do actually quite well at Screaming Frog already. So props to Mark, our head of marketing, for that. Nice one, Mark. What you've got right here, Mark, is that by the time they get to the bottom of all our different services on offer on this page, they're then presented with links to the case studies, which further encourages them to spend more time on the site getting to know the brand, which all helps in the end with the additional conversion. Low conversion rate, kind of everything we're talking about today is hopefully going to improve that. But one little tactic I've seen that people are writing about on the internet is it's human psychology to try and follow the eye line of a individual. So if you've got a picture of a person looking in a certain direction, if you put the conversion rate button right where their eyes land, that can be quite a sneaky way of getting additional people to click through the button if they're just sort of following the eye line of the people. Yeah, I'm not sure that applies to every website, but there's something you could try maybe. Low click-through rate generally is a metadata issue. I kind of love and hate the Marmite SEOs, whoever they are. They just didn't bother with a page title. They just called it Marmite. And they don't really have a meta description, so Google's just taking the text it can find on the page, which, you know, I respect that they just don't care. And they don't need to, because everyone knows what Marmite is. So, you know, that's great. The other way to approach low click-through rate is user intent. So, I mean, if everyone on the keyword that you're trying to rank for all has an informational page and yours is a sales page with a bit of information on it, that might tell you need to rethink things and create an extra info page that just expands on the topic you're writing about, rather than rely on a sales page to try and do two jobs at once. Geography and language, I mean, obviously if you've got a bunch of elves on the website and they're all bouncing because it's not written in Elvish, you'll want to go through and create an Elvish version of the website. Step 4 is competitor analysis, and this meme probably sums up most of my presentation today and also my entire career. I made this, you made this, oh, I made this. So competitor analysis, the first thing we're going to look at is who ranks first, second and third in Google. And obviously this is quite useful because, you know, we're trying to target here what Google considers to be the best websites, so it makes a lot of sense to go after them. What you then want to do is just get a pen and paper out again, just apply your common sense once again and go through it and just think about what makes these websites better than others, what makes them really stand out to you, what are the common themes. Another approach is to compare and contrast the top 5 or so pages that rank, try and work out what they've all got. Do they all have a banner? Do they all have lots of videos? Do they all have lots of prices, lots of images, lots of great frogs? Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you are following that general format because that's clearly what's working for them. Step 5 is UX. This is very subjective, but that doesn't stop SEOs arguing about it on Twitter all the time. And the most important thing to think about really initially is mobile versus desktop. Obviously we're living in a mobile first world, but if you sell SEO Spider software that crawls on a desktop, you'll want to make sure your desktop site is also good. One little tip if you want to find out what your mobile version of your site looks like on desktop and you're too lazy to get your phone out, is you can right click on Chrome and press inspect. Then there's a little icon that appears, and from that you can then adjust it to your liking and look at how your website looks like on different phones. Screen sizes is also very important because, say, hypothetically you bought a 55-inch television in the November sales while you were bored and during lockdown, and then you thought maybe I could work off this, and you had this sat on your desk and you were trying to like load up Excel and it was really big in your face, and then you're going on websites and everything was all stretched and looked kind of weird, and then you're getting headaches and you thought maybe I should go outside more but I can't because there's a lockdown. You're probably not a normal person and you probably need to reevaluate your sort of purchase decisions and try and own less houseplants at the same time. Yeah, you've got to look at what Google says is the most average user for your website, and you can do that in Google Analytics. You can look at browser sizes, screen sizes, what brands of phone people are using, and from that you can create a sort of picture of what the average user looks like, and you should really work towards improving the experience for them. Another thing to think about is different browser types as well can have a big impact on things. This is a GIF I got from one of our front-end developers when I said, oh, would you mind just sort of optimizing this for Internet Explorer, because 10% of the traffic is still Internet Explorer, and he begrudgingly said he would do it. Reviewing the main navigation, another big one. You know, Mark has done a great job. He's made sure that As soon as you click SEO Spider, the first link you see there is download, which is very sneaky, Mark, but that's the kind of marketing that we need. So optimizing it to make sure that the most important links are at the top and everything's very clear is very important. Contact forms, there's a whole lot of things you can do with these. I like the way we've given it sort of personal touch with a nice attractive boy there, helping you make a decision to apply for a role at Screaming Frog. Again, we kept the form itself very simple, but then there's a lot of supporting information which just encourages people to click through. One issue with this one though is they've actually got my job title wrong, just an SEO manager there. So Mark, if you're watching this, I would really appreciate if you could just get that updated. I think that's what a head of marketing is supposed to do. I'm not actually that sure. But anyway, that'd be great. Breadcrumbs is another one that's quite easy to do really, especially for e-commerce websites. Some older people might struggle to find the back button if they've been forced to update to Microsoft Edge and they're getting a bit confused because this isn't Windows XP anymore. So having these links just to further aid users in getting back to the category pages is very good. And it's also great for Googlebot because it just gives Googlebot more options to crawl the site and find all the right pages. Filters, another pretty obvious one. I think the take home from Amazon here is they've always just kept it very simple and they've always just done these sort of tick boxes of what you want. There's no sort of sliders or anything too fancy like that. It's all very basic, and I think that's the main takeaway I'd give from this. And the final step in this process, which is kind of the reason we've been here this whole time, is to talk about signposting trust. There's lots of ways you can approach this. One of the most obvious ones is to get reviews from places like TripAdvisor. You may wish to optimize these further and try and get ratings into the search results themselves. So you can do this through Google reviews, or there's lots of other markup ways you can approach this. Those can just really help your click-through rate a bit further. Testimonials is another powerful one if you're a B2B company. I mean, if you get a quote there, a headshot, a name, a business name, then it all just sort of adds up to the idea that it's a very personal endorsement of your company that can be quite powerful. Logos are another obvious one as well. I mean, you can get these from a number of places. You can say where you've been published, you can say your clients, you can talk about what brands that you stock and who you supply, and there's a whole different way you can sort of showcase the wider network that you operate within to help further showcase how well connected you are to the wider industry. Accreditations are more of a one if you do something a bit more niche, like sort of pharmaceutical related or anything involving safety or any sort of standard stuff. But making sure that this is all very clear in the copy and very well demonstrated is obviously going to be very important to a particular type of audience. Meet the team is a bit of an open goal, and I don't understand why not every single website does this, but if you can just showcase sort of human side of your business, show that you are like a real company that employs real people that do real jobs, it just further helps reinforce the idea that you are a legitimate company that is worthy of doing business with. Contact pages now, local SEO people are already obsessed with these, but if you want to optimize it further from a trust perspective, I do highly recommend having a little map listing showing either your HQ, your office, or one of your shops. This just further reinforces the idea that you're a legitimate company that is based somewhere with like physical stuff going on. Just adds another layer of trust that people might be looking for. Marie Haynes does a really good newsletter for SEO, highly recommend it. What they also do though is they help showcase why you should sign up for it, and they help show you what the value is and what the outcome of that would be. A lot of people who have newsletters on their websites, they just say subscribe to the newsletter here, and then they never really explain why you should or what you get out of it or what the action is going to be from your action, like what's going to happen. So again, that's something to think about, especially with sort of newsletters and sort of other stuff that you're trying to sell. Making sure that's very clear to users where they will go if they take a specific action. And then it's kind of 3 years too late, but if you haven't thought about GDPR yet, you should definitely think about that. That's definitely one that people who are looking for trust will be looking for. Now I'm going to leave you with this one weird trick that will guarantee insane results in 24 hours. Maybe not. But this is one thing that I've been doing with a lot of my clients recently. That's worked really well in terms of just reinforcing to users the trust that they can have in these businesses. What you basically do is you get 3 or 4 USPs that the company might have in terms of whether they're really good at, I don't know, installation or delivery, or they've got loads of years of experience, whatever it is. Put that all in a little banner, have some nice little icons there, and then you can really just sort of shoehorn in why they're a reliable company. And you can put this on the homepage, you can put this on category pages, you can put this on product pages. And if you repeat it across the site, it just drills in that reinforced idea that they are a legitimate company, they know what they're talking about, and they are reliable, and people can trust them, and you should definitely sign up to do business with whoever it is. One thing I've noticed though is that we don't actually have any of these on the Screaming Frog website. So Mark, if you're still watching this, I'd really appreciate if you could get on that as head of marketing. I feel like that's definitely your job, and that's something that you should look at. And so in conclusion, hopefully if you've done all of the above, you can join the second Breakfast Club and keep your clients or in-house other managers happy for just slightly longer. Do send me any Lord of the Rings gifts that you find, and I will happily retweet them. And yeah, thank you for watching.